Countdown to Top 10 Deadliest Natural Disasters in History. Devastating events that caused massive loss of life and destruction. Natural disasters are tragic and often unpredictable events that have plagued humanity since the beginning of time. They come in various forms: earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, cyclones, and volcanic eruptions, and leave behind paths of devastation, causing loss of life, destroying infrastructure, and displacing entire communities. In this countdown, we will examine the top 10 deadliest natural disasters in history, exploring the magnitude of each event and its impact on the world. These events have reshaped nations, forced people to rethink safety measures, and remain stark reminders of the overwhelming power of nature. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe. Just click the bell icon, so you get all the notifications for our new videos. Number 10. The 1920 Haiyuan Earthquake, China. Date: December 16, 1920. Death toll: 273,400. The Haiyuan earthquake, also known as the Gansu earthquake, struck the Ningxi Gansu region of China in 1920 with a magnitude of 7.8. It caused widespread destruction across 20,000 square miles, with many villages completely obliterated and thousands of buildings destroyed. Landslides triggered by the quake buried entire villages, leading to a staggering loss of life. In the months that followed, extreme winter weather added to the hardship for survivors, with many left homeless and exposed to freezing temperatures. Rebuilding efforts took years, and aftershocks continued to wreak havoc for 3 years, prolonging the region's suffering. The catastrophe remains one of China's most tragic natural disasters. Number 9. The 1839 India cyclone. Date: November 25, 1839. Death toll: 300,000. In November 1839, one of the deadliest cyclones ever recorded devastated the region around Karinga, a busy port town on the eastern coast of India. The cyclone produced a massive 40-foot storm surge, which obliterated the town and washed ships far inland, causing widespread destruction. Thousands of people were swept away by the floodwaters, with entire families disappearing in the waves. The storm wiped out the port's infrastructure, making it impossible for relief ships to reach survivors in the immediate aftermath. The cyclone not only led to the loss of human life but also crippled the economy of the region, leaving Karinga a shadow of its former self. Number 8. The 2010 Haiti earthquake. Date: January 12, 2010. Death toll: 316,000. Haiti's 2010 earthquake was a devastating event that shook the world, bringing to light the vulnerabilities of the impoverished nation. The 7.0 magnitude quake struck just 15 miles from the capital, Port-au-Prince, leveling entire neighborhoods and killing hundreds of thousands of people. Rescue efforts were hindered by the widespread destruction of infrastructure, including roads, hospitals, and communication lines. For weeks, survivors were trapped beneath rubble, and many died due to the lack of immediate medical care. Haiti's fragile government struggled to manage the scale of the crisis, and international aid was slow to arrive. The disaster served as a sobering reminder of the impact that natural events can have on the world's poorest nations. Number 7. The 1737 India earthquake and cyclone, Calcutta. Date: October 11, 1737. Death toll: 300,000 plus. On October 11, 1737, one of the most destructive combinations of a cyclone and earthquake struck the region near Calcutta, India. The catastrophe was marked by strong winds, a devastating storm surge, and tremors that flattened entire sections of the city. Contemporary accounts describe the storm as so violent that ships anchored in the harbor were carried miles inland. The aftermath was a scene of unimaginable devastation, with flooding and collapsed buildings killing hundreds of thousands. Disease soon followed as sanitation systems failed, leaving the population even more vulnerable. The disaster remains a tragic chapter in Indian history and an early example of the dangers posed by compounded natural events. Number 6. The 1970 Bola cyclone, East Pakistan, Bangladesh. Date: November 13, 1970. Death toll: 300,000 to 500,000. The Bola cyclone struck East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, on November 13, 1970, leaving behind one of the worst winds reaching 115 miles per hour, along with a 20-foot storm surge, devastated coastal regions. Entire villages were erased from the map, and agricultural production was ruined, leading to food shortages and famine. The cyclone hit one of the most densely populated areas on Earth, making rescue and relief operations extremely difficult. Compounding the tragedy, the Pakistani government's slow and inadequate response ignited political tensions, leading to mass protests. The political unrest following the disaster ultimately played a role in the region's push for independence, which culminated in the creation of Bangladesh in 1971. Number 5. The 1556 Shaanxi Earthquake, China. Date: January 23, 1556. Death toll: 830,000. The Shaanxi earthquake is the deadliest earthquake in recorded history, occurring in China's Shaanxi province in 1556. With a magnitude of 8.0, the earthquake wreaked havoc on a densely populated region, collapsing homes, temples, and palaces. What made the disaster even worse was the unique living conditions of the area. Many people lived in yaodongs, cave dwellings carved into the cliffs. These homes were easily destroyed by the quake, instantly burying their occupants. After the initial quake, thousands of aftershocks and landslides followed, adding to the destruction. The region's economy and infrastructure were devastated, leaving the survivors in a state of poverty and chaos for years to come. Number 4. The 2004 Indian Ocean Earthquake and Tsunami. Date: December 26, 2004. Death toll: 230,000 to 280,000. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, triggered by a powerful 9.1 to 9.3 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, is one of the most devastating natural disasters of the 21st century. The earthquake caused a massive displacement of the ocean floor, sending towering tsunami waves crashing into coastal communities across the Indian Ocean region. Countries such as Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and even distant nations like Somalia and Kenya were affected. In many places, there was little to no warning of the approaching waves, leaving people unable to evacuate. The scale of the destruction was unprecedented, with entire communities obliterated and millions left homeless. The international community rallied to provide aid, but for many survivors, the emotional scars from the disaster remain to this day. Number 3. The 1931 China floods. Date: July-November 1931. Death toll: 1 to 4 million. The 1931 China floods are regarded as the deadliest natural disaster in recorded history. A series of floods, caused by heavy rainfall and a combination of swollen rivers, impacted the Yangtze, Huai, and Yellow River basins, submerging large portions of central and eastern China. Tens of millions of people were affected as entire towns and cities were submerged, with few able to escape the rising waters. Following the floods, the lack of clean water and sanitation resulted in massive outbreaks of waterborne diseases such as cholera and typhoid, driving up the death toll. In addition to the human suffering, the economic devastation was immense, as farmlands were destroyed and food supplies dwindled, resulting in widespread famine. Number 2. The 1887 Yellow River Flood, China. Date: September 1887. Death toll: 900,000 to 2 million. Known as the River of Sorrow, the Yellow River in China has a history of catastrophic floods, and the 1887 flood was one of the worst. Unusually heavy rains caused the river to overflow, breaking through dikes and flooding an area of over 50,000 square miles. Entire villages and agricultural fields were inundated, resulting in widespread displacement and starvation. The local population, already living in poverty, was unable to cope with the disaster. Disease outbreaks in the aftermath compounded the death toll, as survivors struggled with limited access to food and clean water. The flood would go on to influence the construction of stronger flood control measures along the river, but subsequent floods would still occur in the years following. Number 1. The 115 Antioch earthquake, modern-day Turkey. Date: August 9, 115. Death toll: 250,000. Antioch, one of the Roman Empire's most significant cities, was struck by a catastrophic earthquake on August 9, 115. Located along a critical trade route in the Roman Empire, Antioch was a vital center of commerce, culture, and religion. This bustling metropolis was decimated when a powerful earthquake struck on August. Natural disasters, in all their forms, remind us of the Earth's immense power and the fragility of human life. These 10 catastrophic events have not only claimed millions of lives but also reshaped entire regions, leaving lasting scars on the world. From earthquakes and floods to cyclones and tsunamis, The impact of these disasters has forced humanity to rethink its approach to preparedness, response, and recovery. While we cannot prevent these natural events, we can learn from the past, develop better safety measures, and work together to reduce the loss of life and destruction in the future.